This episode of Muddy River Gems is brought to you by Dot Foods.
I think what it comes down to is the culture and the people.
Our culture here at Dot is like no other. I've never experienced anything like what I've lived with for the last 12 years.
Dot is very diverse.
It is truly a family-owned business, but it is a family inside and out.
You always feel like you matter and you play a big hand in the pot.
There's so many opportunities to make a difference at Dot and really contribute to the success of the organization.
In an earlier episode of Muddy River Gems, sponsored by Dot Foods, we introduced you to this old jail in Palmyra. The Marion County Jail, built in 1858, is a really good example of jails at the time. They were attached to the house that the sheriff or the jailer lived in with his family. Then the wife generally would cook the meals for the inmates. They would stay in the blockhouse that you see behind. So this is really a well-preserved example of that time, but it's even more significant because during the Civil War, this old jail also served as a federal penitentiary, and it also led to what was called the Palmyra Massacre, all of which we're going to learn about in this episode. Carol Brentlinger, we just stepped inside the front door of the old jail.
That's correct.
And I described the fact that in the old days when this was built, that the sheriff or whoever the jailer was, he and his family would live here.
Yes.
And of course they would service the prisoners who were in the back in the blockhouse. So we're going to tour this part of the house later on, but what I would like for you to do is take us right into the jail so we can see. This has been restored, to its 1850.
Yeah.
But it still looks remarkably the same, doesn't
Yes,
it?
it does.
As it would have.
Yeah, it does, because all the ironwork is original.
The ironwork, yeah. And the ironwork is something that was probably not escapable.
I'll show you the lock system, no.
Okay, let's go. Let's
Okay.
go. I'm right behind you.
This was the sheriff's office, and so this is the entrance to the jail.
Yeah, that's a serious door.
Yes, it
That
is.
weighs several thousand pounds.
They used a crane when they had to pick it up to repaint it.
Wow.
And you've got this door that pushes back so that you have a sally port, so they can get the prisoner in. And they would have opened this door to let the prisoner in.
Okay.
And this is your pass-through for the meals.
Oh, okay. Just like that. Okay.
Now the floor is not original. It used to be limestone. And,
Oh, it's covered with concrete now.
It's covered with concrete.
Well, that was probably a good move.
Yeah, because that's where they tried to.
But it would have been built, the floor would have been made of the same material as this.
It was limestone, yeah. So, but these blocks, there was a cannonball set inside each of these blocks. That was to make it where they couldn't escape very easily. They would have had to practically take the whole row down, and then it would still be connected over there. So any escapes were made by sawing the bars on the windows.
And were there escapes made?
There were escapes made. Most of them were in early days. And back then they were not called escapes, they were called jail delivery. And if everybody got out, it was a wholesale jail delivery. So.
Well, that's an interesting choice of words, isn't
Yes,
it?
it is.
Okay, but you can see the bars that they would have had
Yes.
now to cover with glass now, but you can see the bars they would have had to saw through, and it's amazing.
And I don't know how they
could.
got up there.
Well, get up there, and then what
Yeah.
kind of tool would they have available to saw through something like that?
They were allowed to have their razors and different personal items in here, so they would somehow make something to use.
How many cells are there
There
for
are
the men here?
There are 4 here, and there's 4 on the other side. Back in the Civil War time period, these cells would have been the same up there. So
Oh, okay, double-decker.
double-decker.
And it's not
just
that way
small.
now, huh?
No,
Okay.
they tore it down in the 1920s because they weren't really using it very much, and put something bigger and more air-free so that they could be cooler in the evenings.
So that was not a cell, that was a place where they could just go to be more comfortable?
No, there's bunks up there.
Oh, okay.
We
All
just haven't restored that part yet.
right. I see, okay. Well, let's take a look in here and you can describe to us how this would have been laid out, or is it laid out just the way it would have been?
It's laid out just the way it would have been. In like 1913, they turned this into a shower.
Oh, okay.
So it was not a cell at that time.
Okay, and what about all the writings on the wall? What's that all from?
That's from the Palmyra Massacre. John Carlin Clark and Nathaniel Coons wrote poems in a book. Mrs. Kinchlow lived across the street and snuck the book in. And
Okay, well, we'll learn about the massacre later in the program,
Yeah.
but that's what these writings are about.
these are all Civil War writings.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's pertaining to the Civil War.
And
Two ladies.
just to refresh, this became a federal penitentiary
Yes,
during the Civil War.
during the Civil War.
Even though most of the prisoners in here were Southerners, and much of Palmyra was a Southern sympathetic
Right, yeah.
town, but the feds came in and they took it over.
Yes, they did.
Okay. Now, is this cell laid out any differently? And this was not turned into a shower, was it?
No, they're just,
Okay, now that's good. We can go in there because that's a really good look at what it would have looked like in 1858, right?
right.
And you would have had 2 prisoners in each cell?
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
And as you see, there's no place to sit except on their bunk.
Yeah, yeah. And my God, the weight and the heft of this iron and metal that they would have had to try to get through. It's incredible.
The 2 prisoners highlighted in there are John Nelson, who was hung just they put the gallows right outside the.
Really?
Really. And then J.B. Johnson, he became the most time in solitary than any other prisoner in the state penitentiary. And he tried to escape here, but they caught him, so they put a ball and chain on him. But in the state penitentiary, he burned a whole building down.
My goodness.
So they call him Firebug Johnson now.
Okay, so that's a typical looking cell,
Right.
and we had what, 8? Did you say 8 of
8,
those?
yes.
Okay.
It's 4 on each side.
Let's continue to go down this way.
And there's just random
Okay.
items
Same
everywhere.
way, except it doesn't have any bedding, but the cots are
Right.
there.
Yes,
Yeah.
yep. Now this one, for some reason, the cots could be raised up and hooked on that hook up there. So I don't know. I didn't see, they were gone, so I can't really, the sheriff just told me that that's.
The sheriff told you that, huh? Okay.
Dan
Well, that's a pretty good, reliable source.
Yes, Dan Campbell was the last sheriff, and he came in and explained some things to me. So, of course, both of these rooms are to do with the Palmyra Massacre.
Okay, so this is just another cell, and these 2 would have been, would these have been opened, or would this have been closed off? Here
Probably it would have been closed off. I know the others were, made more sense to keep them separate.
Yeah, okay.
Some of
And what's the model of here?
this is the model of the jail, and that's the model of the Battle of Athens.
The Battle of what?
Athens.
Athens. Was that close by?
Is that the one? You see, you told me you wouldn't ask anything I didn't know. Clark County.
Clark County.
Yeah.
So it is close by. Yeah. Okay, you know, I think a lot of people don't think of Missouri as having a lot of Civil War battles, but there were.
But they really
weren't there?
did. I think there were more skirmishes here, and General Grant camped right across the highway. He wasn't general at that time.
Is that right?
He was over there. So.
Now, do we keep going this way? Okay. I noticed there's some cases here too, and these are probably sort of and when you're given a tour, these are just for folks to sort of
see.
look at as they.
These
as they go
cases were
through.
actually coffins that we used in the reenactment of the Palmyra Massacre.
You built coffins, and then instead of throw the wood away, you made cases.
We made cases out of them, and their names are still on the ends. Like this is Humphrey. Oh, Humston. Can't see it.
So we're going to tell the massacre story, but how many people are we talking about?
10 men.
10 men were killed?
Yes.
Okay, well, we'll make sure that we get that story, take time for that story. Okay, so this is sort of like a mirror image from the other side, right? This
Right.
is just the other side.
This is just the other side.
We talked about the period of time when this was a federal penitentiary during the Civil War. How many prisoners would they have had in this place?
During Porter's raid, they had 87 in
80?
And I
Well,
don't know
they
where
couldn't
they put
even
them.
lay down. They
No.
would have been on
No,
top
because
of each
these
other.
would have been individual cells up there at that time too. So,
Oh my goodness, that's
Yeah.
torture.
yeah, yeah. And
Wow.
they kept a few Union soldiers upstairs, but these were all the Confederates down here.
Ooh. Okay. Now, I want to ask you a question about these, because I'm seeing these slides here, and it looks like it's a locking system of
Yes,
some kind.
that's
Would
right.
You describe that to us, if you
Okay,
would.
and there was iron bars that would slide through these brackets all the way over to the end, and then if they wanted an individual prisoner out, they would lock these doors except for the one they wanted out, and so then
Okay,
they-
so you could unlock and lock individually,
Right.
but if it was locked down, if everybody was
Yes,
in, you'd
it-
take these metal bars and you'd shove them through these
yeah. And
like
as
this.
you can
so that-
see, it would be a pretty big bar,
You sure would, and then it would rest on here, of course,
Uh-huh.
and come through here,
right, and then
and
rest on there.
here. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, well, and then it went on down.
That
past
would
those-
sure keep you
Yeah.
from any trouble being caused,
Yes.
wouldn't it?
Yeah, any escapes
Wow.
were made when they were out here.
Prison deliveries, you mean?
Yes, yes, prison deliveries.
Oh, this is interesting because this is all this cabinet here. This is all Civil War period.
Except for this, the
except for
revolver.
gun, except for the revolver. Okay.
Yeah,
Bibles, books,
books.
written accounts. of-
Goodies, yeah, Petticourt's biography of his time, Jacob Crease's Bible.
Well, you know what? There aren't that many places that have extant real Civil War items.
Right.
That's terrific. Oh, and you were talking about how these walls were built.
Yes.
And this is a sample.
Sample, yeah, and that would have been on each point.
Okay, so this is a block of limestone.
Uh-huh.
And
There would have been 4 balls.
and they're this size? Are
They
they
were-
this size or they're bigger?
This size,
Oh, they're this size. Okay. That would, of course, the blocks are bigger, so the
Right.
ball would be bigger.
right,
And that was to keep them from being able to move them at all.
right. We were such a secure prison that we held federal prisoners here.
And this is interesting because all of these keys and chains and handcuffs and all the shackles and all this stuff was used pretty recently, wasn't
Yes,
it?
yes, up until 1992.
That's amazing that this place was still a jail in 1992. So then the county built a new jail.
Yes,
Is that what happened?
they did.
And then this just sort of went into deterioration.
They didn't really deteriorate, they just did nothing with it. And it had a very good foundation, so we came in and
Yeah, there
decided
was a lot
to-
of restoration work to
Yeah,
be done.
there was.
We're going to show some pictures of that
Okay.
when we go back upstairs. And look at this gavel. What the heck
It's
is
a
this?
45-pound gavel.
What's that for?
Hanlon was a prosecuting attorney, and then he went into the service where Hanlon, and when he became Speaker of the House, he was presented with that 45-pound gavel.
Of the state of Missouri.
Yes,
Speaker
of the-
House. Okay, and he was a local man.
Yes,
Oh, okay. There's still 2 prison places I want to
Yes.
see. We need to go upstairs.
yes,
Because that's where it used to be individual cells, and then they opened it up, right? But there's also a place on the property where the women were held,
right.
and we need to see that too.
Okay.
But first, let's go upstairs here.
Okay.
After you. Well, Carol, you're a real trooper for coming up here with us, but show us this. But this is interesting
This-
because
yeah,
it
no,
was
this is the
this was
stuff I have trouble with.
re-engineered. It was individual cells for 2.
I'll talk from here. That step's
Okay,
too
all
high.
right, I'm going to go up. You stay right there. So this would have been, see, 1, 2, probably 3 cells for 2
Right,
each.
yeah, there would have been 3 cells
And then they
starting from where
opened
you
it up
stood.
so that, just to give some of them a little more freedom
Right.
and a little cooler.
Because it was hot in here.
Oh, it'd be terrible in the
Yeah,
summertime.
Yeah, it was. And so it was cooler up here.
Mm-hmm.
So they came up, and then eventually they put a restroom in there and made it into cell again.
Yeah, and keeping in mind that this was used for prisoners until 1992, which seems like yesterday.
And if you notice, there weren't too many doors downstairs. There was 3 on the other side. Most of them didn't have doors. They melted the doors down during World War II. So whoever was the strongest prisoner ran the cell block. So then they put this in for a little more security.
Wow. Okay. Okay, we still have to tell the Palmyra massacre story. We'll do that outside, and we have to see the house in the ladies' prison. Right? Okay, I'm following you down.
Okay.
More from Palmyra when Muddy River Gems, brought to you by Dot Foods, continues.
From our trucks to their lunch trays, to your local hospital, to your favorite pub, and to your kitchen table. For more than 60 years, Dot Foods and Dot Transportation have been stocking the shelves of your hometown. Sure, we've grown a lot, but at our core, we're still small-town, family-run businesses that care about our communities and the people who keep us running. Join the Dot family today and be part of something bigger.
Why work at Dot?
You could list out individual qualities forever.
There's a lot of opportunities. They take care of the employees, they take care of the community.
So our pay, our benefits, it's competitive. Time off, tons of flexibility.
They're willing to work with you to help you advance.
Okay, Carol, the room closest to the jail that we just left would have been the sheriff's office. I mentioned earlier in the program that it was not unusual at this period in history for either the sheriff or the jailer to live in the house that was adjacent or
there was a sheriff living here until the 1980s.
Okay, and his family.
Yes.
And so, and usually the wife would cook the meals.
She would cook the meals for the prisoners.
And then deliver it through that pass-through.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. And she also helped guard if the sheriff was gone and the jailer had to go in. She would be here at the door because they have to keep it locked, so she would let him out.
That'd take a kind of a different kind of a woman to want to do that, wouldn't it? But this would have been the sheriff's office.
Right.
And of course, in 1858, it probably didn't look quite this good. You all have done a magnificent restoration job on this.
It's coming along real nice.
And you're still working on it.
Yes, we are.
Yeah. 1858 is a long time ago, but you know, a lot of the woodwork and the doors and a lot of those things are original, aren't they?
Yes, all the woodwork is original. Some of the floors are not. I can't tell you if they're original to the time period, but some of they were original.
Well, you just can't know because floors deteriorate pretty quickly in some cases. But let's leave here and let's go out into the front hall. Now we've seen this area before. We're kind of familiar with this. We would have just come in this front door, and then the family would have had a parlor.
Right. This is their parlor.
And this is nice. This is a very nice home.
It is.
They built. I mean, they wanted to build something that was going to serve a family well, and that was going to last for a while. It's a well-built place.
There was never any fireplaces, though. So they would heat with
what did they do?
With a little stove. Just
a little coal stove, probably, huh?
Yeah. There is one mantel upstairs, but there was never a fireplace.
Now, that's unusual for 1858.
Yes, it is. Very unusual.
Because usually there'd be one in almost every room.
Yep. But there wasn't. Yeah.
Nice high ceilings.
They are very high ceilings, yeah.
So it would have kept it somewhat cool in the summertime. Yeah. Okay, and across the way would have been...
That would be the dining room.
The dining room. Oh, nice big dining room.
Yes, it was. And the cabinet...
You don't use it for that. You use it for genealogy,
genealogy.
Don't you?
We have turned it into a genealogy room.
Anybody that wants to come to Marion County and do their genealogy, you're all set up.
All Missouri. These are all other counties in Missouri, too. So... You're
really... I bet you host quite a few people that are looking for their
We do have
lines,
quite a few, yeah. So.
Okay, now we mentioned, and they can they use your computer too?
Well, I sometimes sit them down and show them the database
Neat.
on
Okay.
it. So yeah.
Okay,
So.
let's go to the kitchen where the
Okay.
meals would have been prepared. And while we're looking at this, we have to look at some pictures that show what this place looked like before you all restored it. When did you haven't finished, of course, but
Right.
you did get it placed on the historic place?
Yes, it's on the National Register.
Yeah, and when did that happen?
Seems like in the 90s or late 1990s, in that area.
Or around 2000?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you do see, if you go on that National Historic website, you can see all the awful old pictures of what it looked like. So.
Yeah, well, and you know, you have them posted. You have some of them in the hall here. And when you look at the walls, were in horrible condition.
They were.
In many cases.
They were. Kitchen especially, and I wish we had those pictures up. It was really bad. It was just pockmarked. And this was a brick wall behind it, but we didn't go ahead and say, we just painted over it because it was in such
You didn't
shape.
remove the bricks?
No.
You just, okay.
Yeah. And then this was a doorway for the sheriff's wife to go through that way, across the hall, and in where that glass cabinet was, there was another doorway. And that's how she would take the meals
Didn't have
in.
to go through the dining room. She just had to cut through right here. Okay.
Right.
And then this, it looks like a gift from somebody,
Yes.
which would have been period from really close, could have been during the Civil War, I guess.
Could have
huh?
been in that time period, yeah.
Very nice, very nice. Well, you all have done a wonderful job here. It's very welcoming. I doubt if the missus had a kitchen quite this
I
nice.
doubt it.
But maybe. Okay, so then we would go upstairs because
Yes.
that's where the family's bedrooms
Yes,
were.
that's where the
But
family's
it's also
bedroom.
where the ladies' prison
Yes,
is.
on the
Halfway
landing,
up, there's
yes.
a landing. Can you take us there?
Sure.
Okay, so Carol, halfway up, the sheriff's wife would have had to come up these steps, right?
Right.
Okay, so let's go ahead and lead us in there if you would. Does
Sure.
it matter which door you take?
No, it doesn't. Later years, this was used as a juvenile, where they held the juveniles, and that's why there's a bar through the pass-through. One of the kids got through that.
You're kidding.
No, I'm not.
Oh, man. Leave it to the juveniles. Huh?
Yes. And as you can see, this is what we were dealing with all the
Now this was a cell for two
women, and then this would have been another cell. We've got storage in there right now, but it's small. You would just have the bunk beds, and that would have been it.
Was that a separate cell?
Yes.
For one though, probably, right? Or would that be
Well,
also
you could
for...
probably put bunk beds in there,
My
just like you
goodness.
did here.
Okay, that's smaller than this one though.
Yeah, oh yeah. Well, it's more the size of what's downstairs.
So this only goes like halfway back. It doesn't go all the way back
No,
like the men's does.
No, there was just the two
and we're only halfway up.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, you
it's
can
like a
look
split
through
level.
the pass through there, and you can see
Yeah, go ahead and
the
show
men's
us.
cells. The guards would come in
Oh,
and
that's
look down there. Of course, the women would also look down there.
okay. That seems like that could be a problem. But
They
none of
like
my
to hug.
business.
This is some Civil War graffiti that is beginning to show, and that's why we have not,
Did you say graffiti?
our paintings, whatever you
Yeah.
want to call it. That's why we haven't done this room. I'm trying to find somebody that knows, but as you can see, it looks like a shield, an American shield, and I found a newspaper article when they were stripping the walls. They found the shield with some writing under it, several ships and a swan painted in here, and it would have had to have been in the Civil War, because he said, for 17 months I have fought, bled and suffered for my country, the United States and Constitution forever.
So men were in here at that time?
At that time, and that was
During the
1863.
war, when it was a federal penitentiary,
Right.
they put men in here.
Because he was Union, they couldn't put him downstairs with the Confederates.
Okay. Yeah, they'd have killed him.
Yeah.
Or
so-
somebody would have got killed.
But we're anxious to see if there's any other.
This looks like another door, but
It
it
is,
doesn't
and-
open now.
No, it does not open. I don't know when they sealed that off. But,
And there's drawings here too.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Have they been there for a long time?
yeah, well, the graffiti, it's all over.
Yeah.
The only thing we've done in here is paint the beds to get the bad graffiti.
It's never too late to pray, one of the
Yes,
ladies
yes.
made note of.
Yes.
Okay. And then is there anything to see in this door?
It's just like this one, except that they took, at some point in time, the bunk beds apart, and they are bolted to the floor. This one's bolted to the floor where you can't move it. So
This one's bolted to the floor. Okay. And, okay, so this is just really a mirror of the other side.
Yeah.
Okay. So 2 more women in here, and maybe 2 more in there. It just looks a little smaller, but.
Yeah, it is smaller.
Okay, and God, look at the bars. Look at what you'd have to cut through to get out of here. And then, of course, look on the ceiling. There's all this further graffiti.
Yeah, everywhere.
Very interesting.
Yeah, when we restore this, I really like to save 2 or 3 pieces of the graffiti to show. That's what, of course, they
Well,
did.
I would be reluctant to get rid of any of it.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, there's
It
some
could
of
be.
it that isn't very children friendly, and we do a lot of school tours.
Yeah. Gotcha. Okay, now we can continue up to
Yes.
To the rest of the living area.
And that's why they had these big wooden doors to help buffer the noise, so the family wouldn't hear.
Oh, okay.
The
Yeah,
prisoners.
it wasn't a security thing, it was a privacy thing.
Right, yeah, the
Okay.
cell door was the security, and the other was just, we set this up as a nursery, because there were, when the sheriffs were here, there were children here, so we sort of set this up as a nursery. And you notice each room has a closet, which is very unusual in an 1858 building.
They didn't like closets because
Yeah.
they got taxed on
Right,
them, didn't they?
right, but this is a county building, so they didn't get taxed.
Can't have all the closet space you want.
Yeah, but they
That's
weren't
just a
very
perk.
big.
That's just a perk for being a
Yeah.
public employee. Okay.
Yeah, the teenage girls, when you show them the closet, they're just, you know. This desk was made from the picnic table that was in the jail cells. And there was still graffiti on the back. He said,
Well, that's ingenious. Who did that?
Nick Yeager built that.
Is he's a local man?
Yeah,
Wow, that's a sweet piece of work.
yeah.
And it came from a what?
It came from the picnic table that was in the
picnic
cell
table.
block downstairs.
Isn't that nice?
And so he left some of the graffiti on the back so that you could see it.
That's why you have it against the wall, right?
Yes, right.
Okay, was this a master?
Yes, this was a master. Oh, there's a dead wasp.
They had a bassinet here, so they had a young family.
Yeah, they had a young family. Again, no fireplace, even though there was a mantel.
Yeah.
They would have
Well,
just had a stove.
that's maybe they were thinking about it. I don't know. But on the second floor, you wouldn't add later.
No,
I saw-
no.
That was just for cosmetic purposes,
yeah,
I guess.
think
huh?
so. Yeah. And then, like I said, the closets, you can see they're very small.
Yeah, but they exist.
Yep.
I mean, you can hang.
Well, they would have just used hooks to hang their clothes back in that time period.
Sure, they didn't. Well, they didn't have as many clothes as
No,
we did.
they didn't.
And they weren't as persnickety about how they dressed and what they looked like, were
Yes,
they?
no.
Okay, so this is nice to have a big hall above the entrance hall
And at
downstairs.
one time, they had a sleeping porch out there.
Ah, okay.
And,
So that might have been a door then.
It might have been, yeah.
That would make sense. That would be,
Yeah.
boy, a sleeping porch, and that would be what you'd want.
Yeah, I think it was torn off during the 1920s because it was in disrepair.
Oh, is this I guess this would have been the older kids?
Yeah, this is another bedroom, and there was one more bedroom that we have for storage now.
Okay.
this is
Has
a-
it been restored?
No, it's just.
Is there a chance we could peek in there
Sure.
just to see what it would have looked like before you did
They-
all your work?
They turned this into a bathroom at some point in time. And it's a mess.
Oh, and you can see, now see what you had to deal with? Look at the walls.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Eventually-
Oh, you really have done a lot.
Yeah, we hope to restore this at some point in time, but just not there yet.
Work, work, work.
Yes.
Another closet.
Yes.
Can't have too many closets
Each, yeah, each
since you're
room
not
here.
having to pay taxes on them.
Sometimes it latches, sometimes it doesn't.
Okay, so it's not me.
No.
There it
There
goes.
you go.
Okay, good.
Yeah. So,
Well, this is very interesting. Okay, so the sheriff's family lived here, and there was a sheriff's family living here until the 1990s.
80s.
80s.
In,
Okay.
around 1980, they quit living here. I'm not sure what time period. The sheriff quit living here, and then they had a jailer living here for a little while. But later, they just had somebody spending the night so that they could let prisoners in and out when they came, arrested somebody at night.
Okay, this is a terrific visit, but I want to, before we get away, I want to go outside with you, and I want to learn more about the massacre and a little bit more about the relationship between the North and the South and how the Federals were able to take this over, and when all that fighting going on. Okay.
Yes.
We can tell that story outside.
Sure.
Okay, after you. Carol, we mentioned the Palmyra massacre a dozen times.
Yes.
If you're on the grounds of the jail here in the lot, there is a board, an information board, and it's called the Palmyra Massacre, and it explains it in detail. Now, let's not go into that amount of detail, but what the heck was it all about?
It was a time when Colonel Porter came in and raided and released all the prisoners in the jail.
Now, Porter is a Union.
No. He was actually in the Confederate services, but they called him a guerrilla. You know, they called his band a guerrilla band all the time. And he came in, they got all the guns from the building up north of here, no, east of here. And then they freed all the prisoners in this jail. The guards here didn't fire a shot, they just let him have them. And they shot from over there at the Methodist Church. They shot over here. We had a ball on top of the courthouse at that time, and they used it for target practice to get their range and everything. And so when they left, after they released the prisoners, when they left, they took about 3 men, I think it was, with them so they could get out of town without being chased. And one of them was named Andrew Alsman, and he was a Union sympathizer, and he had helped the Union capture several different members of Porter's gang before. So he was afraid when Porter released him and turned him loose, he was afraid to go because he said, they'll kill me before I get home. So they told him he could pick his own guard. So he picked his own guard, and when they got to Troublesome Creek, the guard switched, and Andrew Alsman never made it back. So John McNeil said that if Andrew Alsman wasn't returned immediately, they were going to shoot 10 men.
Okay, now who's McNeil?
General McNeil. He was a Union officer.
Oh, okay, he's Union.
Yes.
Okay. So he is wanting to make up for this death of.
Well, he's trying to get him back. At that time, he doesn't know that he's dead.
He doesn't know he's dead yet. Okay.
They had 10 days to return him, and when they didn't return him, he selected, well, Strong. There was the provost marshal, and he selected 5 men from here and 5 men from Hannibal, and they brought them in from Hannibal.
Now, are these Confederate prisoners?
Yes.
Okay. So these 10 Confederate prisoners are brought into Palmyra.
Yes.
And what happens then?
They put them on top of their caskets, and they took them down through downtown and across the road to the old Palmyra Fairgrounds. And there they were executed.
Oh my goodness! Just execution style, just shot.
Yeah.
All 10 of them.
All 10 of them.
And that's the massacre.
That's the massacre.
Was there any upheaval after that? Was there just fighting going on all the time after that occurred?
I don't know that there was fighting that much here, but it was all around. They burned a bunch of the bridges for the railroads, the Confederates did. So there was always something going on.
Yeah, this was a hot spot, wasn't it? Because and we mentioned before that the Federals captured this prison and made it a Confederate
and they took
prison.
the courthouse. And we're one of the few states that had 2 governors at that time, because the governor was pro-Confederate, and he was calling up troops for the Confederate. And they knew if we lost the Mississippi River, the Union knew if they lost that river, they'd lose the war. So they ran him out of town and put a new governor in. So
if we look over at the courthouse here, now this courthouse was not here at the time.
Right.
The old courthouse was there.
Yes.
Inside that courthouse is still a cannonball.
No,
right?
It's a ball that sat on top, like the lady sits on top. This ball was
on
on
the very top of the building.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
And you can see that in the rotunda there.
And there's also a statue over there commemorating the Palmyra massacre. So if you
for 10 men.
If you want, for 10 men, if you wanted to visit this spot, that would be a really nice thing to see as well.
Yes.
Well, Carol, this has been a terrific visit. I want to say thank you for all your time.
Welcome.
It's really nice, and I would sure encourage people to take a look. Yeah.
It's unbelievable the history that we have in this little town.
And you are welcome to visit the old Marion County Jail. It's really easy to do. Just Google search Heritage Seekers and it'll take you to the information. The best way to do it is just give that phone number a call and make a reservation for a tour. With another Muddy River Gem, I'm Mark McDonald in Palmyra, Missouri.
This episode of Muddy River Gems was brought to you by Dot Foods.